Today I'm going to show you how to build a super quick and super easy miter saw station. It's so easy, all you're going to need is a miter saw, a table saw, a drill, and a level. That's it. As far as materials go, all you're going to need is 2x4s or 2x3s, your preference, and then some kind of plywood. I'm going to use melamine. To get started, let's clean this up. That's better. Let's get building. First thing we need to do is build the frames for the shelves. We need to determine the depth that we want and then our length. The depth that I'm going to make these shelves is going to be 30 inches wide or deep, that way to accommodate the miter saw. And then we're going to do a full 8-foot length shelf here, and then about a 4-foot shelf on the other side. So now we're going to cut those cross members. We're going to do it for all 3 shelves, the miter saw shelf and the left and the right shelves. All 3 cross members at the same length, which is about 25 inches. Now that I got all the cross members that are going to create our depth of our shelves, I'm going to cut the length of the smaller shelf that's going to go on the right side of the miter saw itself. And we're going to do 32 inches on those shelves. I'm going to measure from each end. This is the basic idea of the frame. We just got our length and then our cross members cut, so now we have our depth. And we're just going to insert 2 screws on either end.
Again, we're just doing 2 screws on either support. Connect everything on one end and then connect the opposite length. Spacing really isn't specific for those 2 middle spacers. I'm sorry, my audio was really bad here. Basically, we're going to attach it to the wall, and then we're also going to have legs on the front attached to the frame for the front support. All the studs are marked on the drywall, which makes attaching it to the wall super easy. Attaching the legs is also quite easy. We just pre-cut the leg to the height that we know we needed, had a screw already on there, and then we're just going to make sure that the frame is level and then drive that screw in. The frame wasn't level when it was attached to the wall simply because the wall is all cattywampus. But as you can see on the level, nice and level now. Here I'm cutting the legs for the longer shelf frame that's going to go on the left side of the station. When installing this longer frame, the first thing we want to make sure is that we're level to the first frame that we installed on the right side. Once I got that first right side level to the other shelf, then everything else is just leveling it to itself. It's nice to have a second pair of hands here because it was so long. Then we're going to install the legs, again making sure we are level to the reference shelf on the right side, and then it's level to itself. As far as the top for these shelves, I have a 28-inch frame length, so I want to cut my shelf about 2 inches longer. This is personal preference. You could just do 28 inches to match your frame. The shelf top that I'm using is melamine. It's quite heavy, so a second set of hands is always helpful when cutting on the table saw, and highly recommended.
Now we're going to add some additional legs on the inside, not for support of these shelves, but to create support for the miter saw shelf. So we're going to add a leg on the inside here, and a leg inside here.
Here I'm simply holding the leg up and marking where I'm going to cut, take it over to the saw, cut it to length for installation. Installation is simply just driving a screw after you're resting it on the ground, and that again will provide the support for our miter saw shelf.
Okay, so now that we've put on our additional legs, we can put on these additional supports. All these are they're going to be attached to the legs, and they're going to create a support so when we make the shelf for the miter saw, it can attach to these. We're going to attach these to our legs. One thing we want to make sure is we go to the front right here, so that way when we insert our shelf, everything is flush on the front. Okay, so now we're just going to measure to make our frame, just like we did here for this, and then we'll cut out the top. We'll make that. So let's go ahead.
Here I'm cutting out the measurements for that miter saw shelf, the lengths and the widths.
All right, now we're building the frame for miter saw area. Making these out of 2x3s as opposed to 2x4s. Really not a big difference.
built the frame. Don't really need a middle support. Let's go see if it fits. Nice and snug. That's exactly what you want. There we go. A little long. That's okay. Now that we got that metal shelf frame, it's time to cut out the top. Sometimes the piece you need is a little bit longer than your cut capacity on your saw. Easy way around this is what I call a negative cut, and that's just cutting off the excess to get to your final length. Before we mount the shelf that's going to hold the miter saw, we need to measure the height of where the table sits. Right here, we're looking like 3 9/16. So we're going to make sure to account for the thicknesses of the shelf top, and then measure down 3 9/16. Okay, so we know that the height of the miter saw fence is 3 9/16. That needs to be, so we're going to measure 3 9/16. That's right here. That's where the top of this miter saw shelf is going to sit. But to mount our bracket first, or our frame, we need to take into account the thickness of the top, which is 3/4 of an inch. So we're going to measure down 3 9/16, but then another 3/4 of an inch down, because we're going to mount the frame first and then put the shelf on top. So 3 9/16, and then plus 3/4. The easy way to do that is just go 3 1/2 plus 3/4, which gets you, to 4 1/4, and then you just add a 16th. 4 5/16. And we'll do 4 5/16 there, all the way around. And that's where I'm going to mount this shelf frame first, and then we'll put the shelf top on. Mounting this frame was a little bit more difficult than I thought, so having a second set of hands helps. But also, you can use clamps if you don't have a willing wife to help. Be sure to check for level. Don't always trust your measurements or your marks. Level is really the most important part. But you should get good measurements too. This step is completely optional, but highly recommended. These edges on melamine, any plywood for that matter, can be pretty sharp. So I'm just going to get a router with a 1/8 inch round over, hit that edge, soften it up, and really it's a safety precaution. I got 3 little girls. It's worth it. Always remember to wear safety glasses when working with a router. All right, so now we know that this is level. Everything works out for measurements. It's time to attach the tabletops and put the miter saw on and see if it works. Now for the moment of the truth, to make sure the saw fits. I did build this miter saw station keeping in mind that I will be getting a new miter saw soon, so while this one fits, the next one will fit much better and not stick out quite as much. Make sure your measurements fit your saw when you're making this bench. And to test full functionality, we're going to slide it over from the sides that show how flush they are, make a cut, no wobble, that means everything's level, and it's exactly how we wanted it to be. And that'll do it, a quick and easy miter saw station. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. If you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll answer them for you. Have fun building.